there was this man that messaged us on TikTok and he said, "Hey, I want you guys to know that because of the awareness that you spread about colon cancer, I noticed my symptoms and I went and I got a colonoscopy and they found early stages of colon cancer and were able to treat it and remove it." And then numerous people that have went and gotten colonoscopies because of our advocacy. And I feel like I've really embraced the meaning making part of grief, because the 5 years is kind of when I experienced those different stages of like denial and bargaining and depression and anger. I really experienced those, kind of all over the place in the 5 years before Tanner died.
Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Shafer of Talks with Dr. Shafer. I'm so glad you're here. I'm a physician, mom, author, publisher, and I am passionate about helping others reclaim their stories so they can build their most beautiful and healthy future. The process of dying and death are a part of every person's story, a topic many of us don't want to discuss, and one that can make us feel a sense of loss of control. As a result of avoiding these important but difficult conversations, our own deaths and what we want in our final days often goes unsaid. People may not know how we want to be remembered and celebrated, or how we would direct our assets to be managed and our stories to be told after our death. When Tanner Martin was diagnosed with colorectal cancer at the age of 25, he and his wife were struck with the realities of his medical condition. Shay and Tanner shared their journey on social media, documenting Tanner's treatment, as well as how they were preparing for and navigating Tanner's end of life. Now, after Tanner's death at the age of 30 in 2025, Shay is not only keeping his memory alive through her outreach and advocacy, she's also helping countless others prepare for end of life and feel less alone in the process. Mid-February 2026, Shay will be hosting her own podcast featuring guests who are navigating grief called Grief Witnessed. Shay, thank you so much for being here with us to share your story today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dr. Shafer.
Shay, can you share with us the story of how you and Tanner met? I understand you were teenage sweethearts.
Well, kind of. Tanner's from Utah originally. I'm from Arizona. We met when we were teenagers, but Tanner was a Mormon missionary serving his mission in Arizona at 18 years old, and I was a senior in high school. So that's when we first met, but missionaries are off limits when they are, preaching about Jesus. So that's when I first met him. I thought he was cute and really sweet. And we actually didn't reconnect and start dating until 5 years after.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. How did that happen? 5 years is a long time, especially at that age,
Yeah.
that time of life.
We became Facebook friends when he was a missionary. So I saw him on Facebook, and I would sometimes come up to Utah to see people. And after he was done with his mission, I connected with him and I was like, "Hey, I'm in town. We should get together." Because I'm outgoing and, friendly. So that's when we first started hanging out as friends. I was probably like 20. And then when I was 21, about a year after we'd started hanging out occasionally when I was in Utah, we started dating.
Wow. What did you
Yeah.
love the most about Tanner when you met and when you started dating?
Well, when I first met him, I just thought he was just really happy. He always had a smile on his face, which is, I mean, that's attractive to see in any human, just someone that's just very smiley, and just has a light about them. So I thought that was lovely. And then when I started hanging out with him as friends, my brother would sometimes come with us, and I admired how much he was so kind to my brother. My brother's kind of an introvert, and Tanner was able to kind of like pull the social out of my brother, and we had a good time. So I loved that. And then as I spent time with him, he has so many friends because he's such a good friend. And I also thought that was really attractive. Yeah.
I love how when I have seen some of the videos that you have so vulnerably and generously shared through the work you do, advocating for helping people through this process of grief before and after someone has passed away, when they're coping with cancer or other traumas. One thing that really comes across from Tanner and his communication is his gentleness and also his sense of humor.
Yes. He is a funny guy. Yeah, he knows every bear to poke, every funny bear to poke, and he says lots of inappropriate things, but it's fine. It's funny.
So you were in that early stage of life when you met, and then when you started dating, a little older, but still going through things like schooling, making big plans, and growing up
Hmm.
together, really. And then you received his shocking diagnosis.
Hmm.
Can you share your response to that as a family, given Tanner's young age of 25 and this life that you'd been planning for together?
Yeah, Tanner and I, before he was diagnosed, we were going to school for the same thing. We both wanted to be marriage and family therapists. So, yeah, we were, going through parenting classes and relationship classes together. Um, so he was a little bit behind me in school. So when we got the diagnosis, um, I had already graduated with my bachelor's degree, and I was applying to grad programs. Um, and when he got diagnosed, I'm like, what do I do? Like, do I go through a grad program with Tanner newly diagnosed? Tanner's not going to be able to work. So, of course, money is always scary, because he was working like almost no, he was working full time, probably 35 hours a week. Um, yeah, so that was scary. And then overall, he had stage 4 colon cancer, and we Googled the survival rate. I tell people not to do that, but they're gonna do it anyways. So, yeah, that was scary to see as well.
Yeah. And I know you were obviously working closely with his physician. What did they tell you with regards to life expectancy then?
His physician, so his oncologist didn't really like to tell us stuff like that,
Mm.
um, especially because the statistics are based on mostly old people, because what we thought, mostly old people get colon cancer. It's an old person cancer. So the statistics were mostly based off of, older people. So he said, Tanner's really young. So, I think he is gonna, do okay with the treatment, and he can't tell us like, he's gonna die at that point. Um, but he did tell us before we knew it was stage 4, he told us that stage 4 is considered incurable. So we had that in our mind. But he said it's probably just stage 1 or 2 because Tanner's so young. He's only 25. And then a few days later, we found out it was stage 4. And Tanner's like, well, you said it was incurable.
You've been shared this horrible news, obviously life-changing news, and you decided to share your story on social media, not only to, as I understand it, document this precious time because now you understand how limited it is, but also to help others navigating a similar situation feel less alone. When did you first decide to do that, to share your story in the way that you have been? And
Hmm.
what surprised you along the way of documenting your journey and connecting with people around the world who were going through similar circumstances?
So when I first started documenting, the purpose was, and it was immediately after Tanner was diagnosed, the purpose was to have a place that everyone that loves Tanner can go for updates. So I'm not getting 1,000 text messages and answering 1,000, sending the same text messages 1,000 times. So it was kind of like, all right, let's just put it all in one place and people can go there for updates. So that's initially what it was. And then kind of moving through the treatment, it was over 5 years. So kind of in 2022, 2023, when we found out it was terminal, then it was like, okay, let's really document everything so we can have all of these memories. And then I started connecting with a lot of people that were young whose partners or themselves were fighting colon cancer. And I loved that. I loved feeling the sense of community with other people that were going through the same thing. And then in 2024, September of 2024 is when we posted our first three TikToks on TikTok, and like they went viral, and we got like 10,000 followers in like 24 hours. And we were like, okay, our story, I guess, is interesting to people. So then we started posting a lot on TikTok and then moved a lot of that over to Instagram and grew our Instagram a lot. But it was interesting to me that I was connecting with so many people, and so many of these people choose not to share what's going on for them on social media. And it was curious. I actually went to it was some kind of Zoom meeting. I don't even remember what it was about, but I was surprised to hear that so many people don't want to do that. They don't want to share. Um, and it's because it's so incredibly vulnerable. And you're putting yourself out there. And you really, like, Tanner and I put ourselves out there to beautiful people and then also to the wolves. And 95% of people are just wonderful and just so supportive. And then you have the 5% that are scum of the earth people. So that's why people choose not to share, is because they would have to deal with some of those people. And some people just don't understandably have the capacity to deal with that.
Yeah. How did you navigate with Tanner that, given everything else you were dealing with? What were some things you did to protect your peace and your privacy?
I'm a mental health therapist, so I'm able to, separate myself pretty well from people that obviously have issues. But Tanner is just like, he's kind of like water off a duck's back. Like, obviously, those people are keyboard cowboys or whatever they call them. And that's what they do for a living. So him and I joked around a lot with, whatever people would message us or say to us. We're like, oh, okay. But it didn't really affect us. We just kind of teased people. We would tease people about it.
Poking the bear comes again, right?
Yeah, Tanner definitely like poking the bear for sure. I mostly would choose to just like not engage with those people at all. But sometimes, Tanner's like, we should address this and tease them.
Now people
Yeah,
are going to be looking back through your comments and trying to find these interesting conversations and think back to
I
them.
know.
So, and I think it's good advice though, because I think when you do put yourself out there, to be prepared for that and to know, just like you help people navigate other challenges. This is another challenge that you navigated on top of everything that you're going through as a family. I wonder, in addition to the support you received, connecting with other people who are already on a similar path, did you have people contact you who were inspired to look into their own health or their own family's health because of seeing where you were with Tanner?
1000%. There was this man that messaged us on TikTok, and he said, hey, I want you guys to know that because of the awareness that you spread about colon cancer, I noticed my symptoms and I went and I got a colonoscopy, and they found early stages of colon cancer and were able to treat it and remove it. And I think we at least had maybe two other people with the same circumstance, and then numerous people that have went and gotten colonoscopies because of our advocacy. which I continue to be very passionate about. I'm actually going to Congress in March to speak to them because March is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, and we're going to go fight colorectal cancer is a nonprofit. We're going to go and speak to Congress. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, that's amazing. We're going to make sure we put the information in the show notes because we all know when you go speak to Congress, the more people are there with you in the audience, the
Yes.
better. So we'll let everybody know when that's happening. So if you happen to be in the area and you want to join in and lend your support in person, absolutely, you'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
And often you can watch online as well as support, and that's documented how many people are watching. So there are
Yeah.
many ways that you can support this amazing advocacy work that will save lives and will prolong lives. And so it's absolutely beautiful what you are doing.
Yeah, I think last week or the week before, there was a news report that came out that colon cancer is the #1 cancer killer under 50 for men and women. It's moved
Yes,
to
and
#1.
that
Hmm.
age keeps dropping, the age of
Yeah.
concern. And so,
Hmm.
absolutely, awareness of symptoms and also screening, being timely with your screening, and also taking into consideration family history to potentially change that age of screening to bring that down. All important things to discuss with your doctor, and
Yeah.
all so many reasons why it's important to advocate and educate as you're doing. Can you share with us how you as a couple and your family and friends work together to support you through these 5 really tough years and things that, having experienced them, you would say, wow, that was really helpful or meaningful in those moments?
Starting probably with family, they were the like our rocks for sure. My parents moved up to Utah right before Tanner was diagnosed, which I don't think was a coincidence. And we ended up living in their basement apartment. And I think like Tanner's parents live about 15 minutes from where I live, in my parents' basement apartment. So our parents were just such a huge support, just willing, especially when Tanner was in the hospital a lot. I was exhausted. I needed to sleep because I'd gone to the ER multiple days in a row with him and sat for hours in the uncomfortable chairs. And so, like, my dad or my mom or Tanner's parents would take Tanner to the ER so, like, I could get some rest. And Tanner really had a fear of, like, being alone when he died. And so we just had such a huge support system of family, extended family, friends, church, congregation, individuals, all willing to come and sit with Tanner. So he almost always had someone with him in case something happened. Um, so I would say like being like all these people just being so present for Tanner was just so helpful. And because they could be present with Tanner, I could also rest because it was exhausting to be a caregiver 24/7 for 5 years. And I did end up going through my master's program during the 5 years of Tanner fighting cancer. Um, and so just to have that support system was so helpful. And then I had to become really good at accepting help from people, more than just having people go sit with Tanner, but a lady in my church congregation did my laundry, and like that includes my underwear. And I was like, you know what? That's really uncomfortable for me, but it was so helpful to have her do my laundry. And that's someone in my church congregation. I can't even tell you the number of times my mom did and still does my laundry. We had to get really good at accepting help. And that was hard for me because I feel like I pride myself on, being pretty independent and taking care of myself, and taking care of Tanner. But I'm in a place now, especially as a solo parent, where I rely so much on my in-laws and my parents for help because I've just gotten so good at it.
That's such a strength, and I hope it's a strength, and I imagine because you're modeling it, and so much more is caught than taught. Hopefully, it's a strength that your beautiful daughter picks up too, because being able to lean into your community, you've seen the gifts that it gave you, the support that it gave the two of you on your journey, but also
Yeah.
what you gifted just by documenting your experience, the lives you saved or prolonged, the support you gave is incredible. And so I think
Mhm.
we're all so afraid to ask for help, especially people in caring professions like doctors and therapists. We
Mhm.
go into those professions because we want to help other people. We don't necessarily ask for or accept help. And so I think it's a
Yeah,
beautiful thing to embrace and to model for people that when we accept help, it's really beautiful what can be born out of that.
totally. Agreed.
Oh, you and Tanner, as we mentioned, became parents to a beautiful baby girl before his passing. Can
Mhm.
you share with us this experience and how you are approaching talking about and remembering your husband with your daughter?
Yeah. Yeah. It was quite the decision to choose to have a baby, knowing that Tanner was going to die. Um, I mean, honestly, people say this all the time when they're my little defenders on social media. If someone's like, "Why would you choose to have a baby knowing he's going to die?" And people on social media are like, "Well, you're going to die." And it's true. Like we really all we all have an expiration date. It was just much more in our faces and closer than we'd hoped. Um,
Mm,
so we just chose to be intentional with that time, and part of that was choosing to have a family, have our daughter. And I can tell you that my daughter receives like so much love from so many people. Like
mm,
that girl, she will never know a day without love. Um, but Tanner wanted so badly to meet her that I truly believe that he fought death to be able to meet her. There were a couple times my daughter was born in May, and there were a couple times in like February and like March where I told Tanner like you don't have to do this anymore. You do not have to suffer. You don't have to do treatment. Like because he was really, really suffering, and there were some horrible, horrible moments. And like I think this one particular time, he just was expressing how much pain he was in. He was in the hospital about to go to the ER because of how horrible he was doing. And I was just crying and I was like, Tanner, you don't have to do this anymore. It's okay. And he just looked at me. He was crying, he was sobbing. And he just said, I have to see Jiaozi be born. I have to meet our baby. He called her
mm,
Jiaozi, which means dumpling in Chinese. It's really cute. And so he just like looked at me and just said, I have to hold Jiaozi. I have to meet her. And oh my gosh, that made me just sob. Just that he was enduring all of this horrible pain to be able to meet her. And then the day she was born, it was a C-section. I had a C-section, and we have it on video where Tanner is holding her for the first time, and he says, "I've waited so long to meet you." And
mm.
it really was so long for him because of how much pain he was in. And oh man, every time I watch that video, I just sob because I know and I saw how long and painful it was for him. And he had zero regrets because he was able to meet Amy Lou. Um, so now we walk to his grave pretty often and talk to him. We also just talk to him all the time, just in general in my home. I have pictures of him. Um, and Tanner's parents come over quite often, maybe like 2 or 3 times a week to watch Amy Lou when I'm working as a mental health therapist. And they'll turn on videos of Tanner talking, or we have a Star Wars room. They'll take Amy Lou, his dad in particular, will take Amy Lou into the Star Wars room, turn on Star Wars music, you know, because they can feel close to Tanner, or at least Tanner's dad feels really close to Tanner with Star Wars stuff. So everyone involved in our life is just always bringing Tanner up and talking about him, and so I don't think she'll I I don't think she'll have any issue being connected to her dad.
It's so beautiful, the work that you do as a community and as a family. Something that came up for me, I'm imagining Amy Lou being one of the youngest attendees of Comic-Con. I feel like that should happen, right?
Yeah,
That should happen.
I love that. And Tanner would love that.
I have to say, Tanner suffered greatly. And when you see your videos, you see that. And
Yeah.
those of us, I lost a brother to cancer.
Mm.
Many of us have lost family members to cancer. And when they have that prolonged course, it's just a challenge you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy, as they
It
say.
is
It's
torture, slow, painful for the person dying and the people that love them.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing that I wanted to make sure we acknowledge is, you know, he suffered a great deal. You suffered a great deal as well. And you served as his caregiver and his partner. And then, of course, the mother of your child.
Yeah.
Throughout that. And one of the things that I think, one of the videos that I saw, I think it was maybe a Washington Post interview you had done, that really embodied how you were showing up for your family, for Tanner, and for, you know, for yourself, how you were regulating your nervous system, using your mental health professional skills to get through those moments, was when you were with such care working on creating Tanner's comfort room right before you went to the hospital. Can you talk about what the comfort room was and what he wanted from it, and how you made that happen even moments before you went in to have your daughter?
Yeah. The comfort room is a nice way to put it, because it was his deathbed space. And that's something we had planned with his death doula before. And our death doula said, focus on the five senses, because, you know, that's all they have to hold on to at the end. And, you know, especially like taste goes, and then, you know, there's, you know, kind of a fizzling out of our senses. So she just said, focus greatly on that. So Tanner wanted it to feel like fall. He loves fall. That's his favorite season. So we got like these fall leaves. He wanted candles, like kind of like a candly space, because that's kind of fall. He wanted it to smell like fall. So I bought all of these like scentsy, actually I think they were Pura, but anyways, just different smells of fall. And then cozy. He wanted to feel cozy, so I got him these like fuzzy socks, and we have a million Miki Couture blankets. So, you know, it was warm and it was cozy for him. Although at the end, he was butt naked and didn't want a blanket on. So, and then he wanted music. Our death doula said, make a death playlist of your favorite music. So he made a playlist, and it had like Star Wars and Jurassic Park and like a lot of John Williams music scores. So, yeah. So that's what I was doing.
Man. Yeah,
A very cinematic man. Yes. So that's what I did that. I think the day before I went to be induced, I was doing that.
It's such an act of love that
Oh,
you were doing that. And beautifully captured by the crew that was there. I'm grateful that they captured that moment, because I think
Yeah.
it was such an important moment to capture not only his story, but also your story. And
Yeah.
I think your daughter will appreciate being able to see her mom in that moment as well. I can't imagine, something that really crossed my mind watching that was imagining you recovering from your experience and caring for a newborn and caring
That
for
was
Tanner.
hard. That was so hard. And I was not prepared for how hard it was. Um, it was hard for me to go from being Tanner's caregiver. Like, I was his caregiver. I knew everything he liked. I knew what he didn't like. I knew the way he liked his pillows. I knew, I knew everything like that. And I was his person. And now I'm recovering from C-section and I have a newborn and I can't be his person. And that was devastating for me because I wanted to be there with him, like, and especially because those were his last days. It was really hard for me to give up that role that I had. Um, but I had to take care of myself and I had to take care of my daughter. And I was a mess. Also, I didn't realize, I know people are like, yeah, you're crazy after you have a baby, but uh, I was crazy. Like the hormones, I was just sobbing all the time. One, because I think my hormones were crazy, but two, like I knew Tanner didn't have very, very long left.
Yeah.
So it was really, really hard.
So challenging. And the thought I have in my mind, I just have this picture of a higher power, whatever it is you believe in, whether it's God or something else, creating a space in your life, a new bucket for love, and saying, we're going to need to shift this love, and preparing you for that moment. And in that moment, it felt almost like a sense of, I'm abandoning this person because this has been my role for all this time.
Yes.
Yet you had both made this choice to expand your love and to welcome this new person into your hearts.
Yeah.
The timing of that, it's so devastating, but it also feels so intentional and so purposeful, like everything else you did in that time you had together, of being able to pour your love into your daughter.
Yeah. And the love that you feel when you have a newborn is like indescribable. Like I just held her and I looked at my mom and I was just like, Mom, I can't believe, like I was crying. You loved me this much.
Hmm.
Like it's indescribable, that love. Um, and my mom had the exact same conversation with my grandma, like when she had me, I'm her first. And she just was like, You loved me this much. Oh, it's a beautiful thing.
It is. And I think that love, whatever whatever form love comes in your life, because for different people, there's a different bucket, a different receptacle for that love, whether it's a person, your child, animals you care for, whatever it is, that it comes with such intention into your life. We need that love. We need those relationships. And I'm so grateful that you both had that and that he was able to meet his
Yeah.
Chinese dumpling, which by the way is the absolute perfect name for a little squishy baby.
I know. It's so cute. It's so cute. People are like,
Very
You're naming
romance.
her Jiaozi? I'm like, No, that's not her real name. It's not her real name, guys.
It'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see what she chooses to go by at different stages in her life, right? When she's little, when she's a teenager, when she's in her 20s, when she's in her 30s.
Yeah.
which name will she identify with? And I wouldn't be surprised to see how that changes. I think that will be an interesting journey for her too, because what a
Yeah.
precious gift of a nickname. It's so
Yeah.
sweet. And
Yeah.
with his lightheartedness, I have to say, when you do look at the videos that you two put out into the world, Tanner often had a lighthearted approach to discussing his life and the process of his death. I get this overwhelming sense, again, of him being such a gentle, caring person who wanted to use his experience as an opportunity to support and love the people around him in person as well as online. And it brings to my mind his video announcing his own death, which he had done not only as an announcement of his death and a final message, but he also mentions very clearly in the video how he is giving you the space to
Yeah.
grieve by delivering that message himself to the people who have been following you. And how when people who are dying are thinking of the preparations, that he's inviting people to also consider what their family will need in that time.
Yeah. 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 Tanner was always thinking about other people. One of the reasons he was so worried about dying is because he was worried about his family, um, and his family being taken care of. And when he was in the his active dying stage was only about 5 minutes long. Um, it was very short. And I just remember holding his hand and telling him, like, we are going to take care of each other. I'm going to take care of your family, and your family's going to take care of me. Because I knew that that was such a huge worry for him. And one of the reasons why he fought it for so long is because he was worried about his family. So, even his act of making a video announcing his death, he's so funny. It was really sweet to watch that video, and I couldn't edit anything out. I was like, no, this is 100% Tanner. This is all going out there.
I appreciate that. There was nothing from an audience standpoint, no notes. It was just so beautiful. And I think that's something that when we introduced you at the top of the show, of our discussion, I think that is something that you two did such a good job of dispelling the fears around this process and the fear of speaking on it,
Yeah.
even speaking on your own death. Almost, I think some people might have a superstition or, a feeling that they are bringing on something with their words. Words have power. But I think also as a physician, as someone who is of a certain age, as someone who has seen a lot of death and dying because of the nature of what I do and just the amount of years I've been on the planet, you realize how many people die and people don't know what they want.
Yeah, and I've heard that from so many of my widowed friends that um they understandably chose not to have those discussions because those discussions are hard because it's acknowledging your expiration date. Um, but then it was really stressful for them to choose the casket, to choose the flowers, to design the headstone because they want to do right by the person they love, but they just stress so much, and it's so stressful. It's it's so stressful for them that it's hard for them to go to the cemetery and to visit the resting place because the only memories they have about it are just complete stress. Just stress,
Mm.
grief, sadness, numbness. And that wasn't my experience, probably because Tanner and I created memories, shopping for our cemetery plots and designing the headstone together. Like everything was a memory before Tanner died. And so, I don't have any negative feelings when I go and visit his grave because I know it's exactly what he wanted. And we have videos and memories, really funny memories there. And so, although I miss Tanner, that is it's not a negative experience for me.
Mm. I think
Yeah.
it's such a good important lesson about our fears and our hesitations. And I really appreciate you sharing that, especially about that relationship, because that is so clear. You already had warmth and memories in those places, and now you can go there and experience him, not him after his passing, but experience him when you were together in that place. That's a
Yes.
really wonderful, beautiful point to bring up. And so hopefully people who are listening will just look at things from a different perspective and just make different considerations as they're planning, so that what they want or what their loved one wants is what happens. And also so that even if we're so fearful to say, this is what I want, we don't want to call something forth with our words, we also don't want to put our loved ones who are grieving in that position of not knowing what we want. So I so
Yes.
appreciate the work you're doing. It's so important. How do you think that Tanner's approach, as you're talking about his approach to his death, his dying, and also supporting you through that, has influenced the way that you navigate all of the things that you needed to accomplish in that time? You've touched on a few of the things you needed to do, but I know you had extensive things, from bucket list items that you wanted to do while he was healthy enough to enjoy them, to the things that were very logistical in the end of his life, from things like funeral arrangements to announcements, those day-to-day things. How did his approach influence that experience for you?
I think because Tanner's so lighthearted, it wasn't so heavy. I mean, like, what it is in itself is heavy, but Tanner's so lighthearted that it made it enjoyable. Down to going to the funeral home and picking out his casket. Like, he pretended to like get in his casket, and at the at the cemetery, he laid on the ground where his burial plot was going to be and was like, I think we need a sun tree here. 'Cause I need some shade. So he's just so lighthearted, it made it a lot more enjoyable. And I think it's okay to bring humor into it. Even with it being so serious and so heavy, like, bring humor into it, because that is a memory that you're gonna have connected to that. And so it will be a better memory for you. So I liked his approach, making light of it, um, and still getting it done.
Getting it done. You had a
Yeah.
really interesting video that you shared. I think it might have been at least two-part video, about the end of life cake, talking about getting it done. And I thought that was really interesting, because when you're thinking about end of life, it's overwhelming from a variety of standpoints. When many of us think about the overwhelm, we're thinking emotional overwhelm. But when you are the caregiver, when you are the partner, or when you're the executor of the estate, the overwhelm is both grief, but it's also all of the logistics, like we've been
Oh
talking
my
about.
gosh.
And when you have this end of life cake that's talking about, again, the things during the time when someone is living, but they know that there's as you call it, the expiration date, like they have a general idea of the expiration date.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of the cake, there's just all of the logistics that need to be done before or after the time of death. And I really like how you used that as a tool to take this just overwhelming concept and reality and conceptualize it, visualize it, and say, like, okay, basically which piece are we going to start with? And you eat a cake bite by bite. You don't eat the whole thing.
Yes. I didn't even think about that representation, that you just said. You don't eat a cake, you don't, eat it all at once. It's a piece by piece thing. And yeah, I separated it into the things that we did before Tanner died and then the things we did after. And the things we did after that were left were only the things that you could do once the person has died. Everything else that we did, you can do before someone dies. And oh my gosh, did that make it? First of all, why is it so hard to die? And why is there so much paperwork? Um, like, there's a lot of that stuff to do, and that's just annoying. Like notifying all the credit reporting companies. People forget to do that. Make sure that you do that. so people don't open a credit card in your loved one's name. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of that paperwork, logistical things, and luckily I had a great support system, and my dad pretty much did all that for me, so I didn't have to worry about it. But then like a huge, like the larger part of that cake, the larger half where there's so many pictures and things, we did all of that before Tanner died, so I didn't have to worry about it. But most people don't do any of that. And so they're left with the entire cake to, you know, worry about after their loved one has died. And that's when you're like numb and, you're grieving. And oh, I can't imagine doing all of that after.
To go back to your comment about the expiration date and also when people were making statements about, well, why did you make this decision knowing you were going to die? And the response of someone else was, you're going to die too. We're all going to die. We
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
when we're going to die. It brings up this interesting concept of, why do we wait for our bucket lists when we know when our date is coming or roundabouts? And why not in our 20s have a bucket list, in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s onward, have a bucket list? And like you said, so then if there's an expiration date, we can look back and say, wow, there were all these things I wanted to accomplish. I did these things. And then maybe I can't jump out of an airplane, but maybe I can do, I can do something that's going to be, similar, whatever it is that's on your bucket list. So you can not look back with regret. And I think that that's one of the many, many beautiful things that you have highlighted in your work and what you've shared with the world about your family's journey is do the thing.
Yes.
Speak it too. Say the thing you need to say, do the things you want to do, and live your life.
Yes. I love that. I mean, after going through what I've gone through, I feel like I have become way more intentional with my time, maybe even a little impatient because I'm like, no, I don't want to wait to do this thing. I want to do it now because like who knows when my expiration date is. Um, and I've gotten like I really love manifesting. You know, manifesting in a healthy way of like this is what I want. I'm gonna I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it into the universe. I'm gonna write it. I'm gonna do all the things to make it known, and then I'm also gonna do as much as I can do. And obviously, like there's the letting go of control, and the outcome's going to look like whatever the universe or God wants it to look like. But I'm just trying to be so much more intentional with my time, and I hope people don't have to go through what I've gone through to do that. I don't think people need to go through a loss of their husband to do that. And I hope that they won't need to. Yeah.
What, having experienced what you've gone through with Tanner and everything you've learned, I know you've touched the lives and are now in contact with so many people who have similar journeys and stories. What do you feel lies beyond the date of expiration, as you said?
What do I feel lies beyond the date of expiration? Personally, I think it's you know, I would refer to it as like the spirit world. I'm Christian, I believe in Jesus Christ, and so he's been resurrected, and I believe that he will come again. And so in the meantime, I think there's like this world where when people die, their souls or their spirits, they kind of go there in waiting for their loved ones until Jesus comes to the world again. So that's kind of what I believe in. And I believe that they can have contact with us and
Mm.
and they can stay close to their loved ones down here. I think that there's work to do in that world with the spirits. Um, but I read a book called Signs. Have you heard of it?
No.
Signs by Laura Lynn Jackson. It's a New York Times bestseller. Fantastic. I had many, many widowed people recommend this book to me.
Mm.
And I started reading it and I'm like, this lady is a medium. I don't know if I believe in mediums. That's a little far-fetched for me. But I read the book and then I started the book is about getting signs from your loved one on the other side.
Mm.
And they want to connect with you and they want you to know that they're okay and that they're here and watching over you. And so I didn't believe in mediums before I read that book, but I do believe that there are people, not everyone that says they are, but that there are people that have that gift. Um,
Mm.
and as I've tried to connect with Tanner on my own, I think everyone has the capacity to connect with a loved one. I write to Tanner, and I
Mm.
feel really close to him when I write to him. And so that's kind of like another one of my beliefs that's kind of formed through this experience is that I think we can connect with our loved ones on the other side.
Mm.
Yeah,
It's an interesting topic.
it
I
is.
don't think we have the answers, but
No,
we also know that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. You know, life is, we're
love
all
that comment.
energy.
Yeah,
We're all energy, and it's so beautiful when someone is no longer with us, standing with us, when you just have these moments where you feel their energy, whatever that looks like for you. There are moments where we feel touched by the same energy that we experienced from someone, and
yeah,
can't be ignored, and we certainly don't want to, because it's precious.
yeah.
You keep making me cry.
Oh, as a therapist, I have that effect on people.
Well, and you know what I have to say? So, talking about things that change after we have children, after having children, I cry so
Oh,
easily, and I don't take it as a negative thing in the least.
yeah,
I think for me, being a very analytical person, a scientist, a doctor, you have I was in residency when I had my first child. And so you're kind of like a little robot, right? I was always empathetic, of course, towards patients. And I've always been on the high warmth side when it comes to interacting with patients. But nonetheless, you're a little scientist, you're going and you're doing the thing, you're seeing your patients, right? Checking all
yeah.
your boxes, getting your diagnosis. And I can remember so distinctly after having my daughter, it was a different experience. Everybody was somebody's kid from that moment on.
Yeah.
Every human was somebody else's person, was somebody else's
Hmm.
child. And that never changed after having children. And I think it was a beautiful gift for me. I don't know that everyone has that same experience when they have children. But that was my experience. And I think that was one of the greatest gifts of having children, was this understanding of humanity that was to a deeper degree than I had accessed before. And being a physician, being someone who cares for people like yourself, I think you also, when you're invited into someone's life in a different way, without the boundaries and the borders that we often have up in front of us, when people invite
Hmm.
you in a way that often can feel unearned, right? You're otherwise strangers. You wouldn't even sit down for a coffee if you ran into each other on the street, but yet you have this privileged role when you are in a caring profession of sitting with people through extremely challenging moments, the most challenging
Hmm.
moments of their lives, and being privy to their deepest, darkest truths and experiences. And I think that's why, when you talked about how when you started sharing your story and you had 10,000 new followers the first day, the thing that speaks to me is most of us don't have that experience. Most of us have lost so much of community and storytelling and sharing of each other's experiences. And again, we have that fear and that border, that disconnection. So we don't do that.
Yeah.
But you and Tanner approached it so differently, and it was so welcoming to conversations that otherwise are really discouraged to have, that I think it made people feel so close to you, and so allowed to explore parts of themselves that they hadn't been able to explore before, whether they lost someone or they're facing these challenges in their life and they need help navigating. So I just am so appreciative for what you're doing. And I understand why you've had such a profound impact on people.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's really sweet. And I don't think like people need permission. You know, sometimes we're like, maybe my videos gave people the permission they needed to have these conversations. I think it more just brought awareness to them that it's okay to have these conversations and it's okay for them to be hard. And so I'm grateful that my page has been a place to help people in that way.
It really can. So we've talked about all of the things. This is something I really like to talk about when we talk about grief, which is such an important thing to talk about on a platform like this, because we don't like to talk about this. So a lot of us feel unprepared. A lot of us, when we are maybe for the first time having to face conversations about loss, maybe someone in our family or friend or colleague has lost someone they love, we can be really nervous. We can fear to say the wrong thing. And we can say things, grasping at straws, trying to be helpful. We can say things that actually aren't helpful and can be really painful for someone who's grieving the loss of their life
Yeah,
partner or someone they love. What are, from your perspective, things that you really appreciated hearing? And what are things you noticed a pattern of things people say that you would discourage or say, maybe think about approaching this differently?
totally. I recognize that most people are saying things with like really good intent. Like they want to say something, they don't know what to say, and so they just say something. And so I think I want to say I know, but I think that saying things like, well, at least you were married, or at least you had them for 7 years. Um, or they're in a better place. I can tell you right now, grievers hate hearing that. Or even bringing religion into it. I'm religious, I'm Christian, but people don't want to hear they're with Jesus or they're with God. People don't want to hear that because we have human minds right now. And so we comprehend things in a human way. And the human wants to be connected with their person right then and right there. And so, to say something like they're in a better place or they're with God, a griever doesn't want to hear that. But I can tell you that a griever wants to talk about the person they lost. And people think that they shouldn't bring them up because it's going to make them sad. And maybe it will make them sad, but I can tell you that they want to remember the person that they lost. And they don't want to forget them. That's what grievers are always afraid about, that they're gonna forget what their person's laugh sounds like, or they're gonna forget what things that they say. And so they want to talk about the person they lost. So ask them about them. My whole purpose of the Grief Witness podcast is to witness people's grief and to talk to them about the person they lost. And so don't be afraid to ask them about them. Like, what are you missing most about them? Or what were your favorite things about them? Just asking them questions about whoever they lost. That's like one, if not the most important thing you can do for someone that's grieving.
My friend Joe, you remind me of something he said when he visited the show. He's a 19 Emmy award-winning sportscaster out in Minneapolis, and he is so good at speaking to people. And he was really shocked at his mother's funeral at how those interactions went and how much people struggled with that. And what he said he appreciated the most when people would say was the questions, like you said, and also when they would share a beautiful memory. You know what? My
Yes,
favorite memory of Tanner was when we did this.
I love that. In fact, I have like a group video chat with Tanner's best friends from high school, and I got on there probably in August or September, and I said, guys, will you just share with me some of your favorite memories of Tanner? I just want to I just want to hear them. And then they were just laughing and just telling all these stories of Tanner. And so I love that. Asking them questions are for memories. Oh, I just think that's exactly what a griever wants.
And you're creating new memories because you may not have heard that story before. Now you've got a new piece.
Exactly. Yep. Most of these stories were stories I hadn't heard, and I was like, that sounds just like Tanner.
That's beautiful.
So yeah.
I know you're still navigating these stages of grief, and they're nonlinear, as we know. And you've been sharing about the stages of grief on your page. What is the process of grieving teaching you?
You know, I think I was a little confused when there was the physical event of Tanner dying, that I wasn't like crying all the time. I was like, this is what I thought grief would look like. And I said something to my widow friend about it, who her husband fought cancer for 5 years and then died. She's really young as well. And she said, Shay, you have been grieving Tanner for 5 years. And so what you're thinking grief looks like, you have experienced that before Tanner actually died. And so like, yes, I've had moments where I really miss Tanner. I'm really lonely and I am crying. But a lot of my grief has looked like advocacy, memorializing Tanner, more of the like meaning making part of grief. David Kessler, he's a licensed clinical social worker, and he has a grief certification, and I'm one of his certified grief educators. And the last step, or a step in the whole stage or whatever, is meaning making. And I feel like I've really embraced the meaning making part of grief, because the 5 years is kind of when I experienced those different stages of like denial and bargaining and depression and anger. I really experienced those, kind of all over the place in the 5 years before Tanner died. And then since the actual event of him dying, it's really been a lot of meaning making for me.
I appreciate how you show those 5 years, acknowledge that, and also we know that it's nonlinear, and we know that
Mm-hmm.
it can really sneak up on us. So if
Mm-hmm.
someone's listening and they're in a different stage, I think it's also helpful to know that you're not going to be here forever. If this
Yeah.
stage is feeling untenable, it will not last forever.
Yeah, it won't.
Do you have a message? I know you talk to Tanner. Do you have a message for Tanner today? Things that have been brought up for you having this conversation that you want to share?
I'm constantly trying to do right by you, Tanner, and to keep your memory alive and to do the things that you would want. And yeah, a lot of my advocacy in different areas has been because I have felt that this is what Tanner would want. Actually, this is what Tanner wants. And I feel connected to him. So just telling him that I'm doing that.
Shay, and I feel so connected to you. I'm so grateful to
Oh,
be a witness to your story, and I feel connected to Tanner and your beautiful daughter now. So thank you so much for sharing your
yeah.
journey with us, and also your support. I know it's going to touch a lot of people, and also your advocacy work for prevention and for screening will also save lives. You're touching so many lives in so many ways, and you have such a big impact.
Oh,
Everyone,
thank
make
you.
sure that you check out Grief Witnessed. I'm excited. I'll be subscribing as soon as it's up in mid-February. So we're excited for that. And also, Shay, where would you like our audience to connect with you and follow along as you're sharing more on your channel?
My Instagram, my TikTok, and my YouTube are all under at Tanner and Shay. So they can follow the podcast there, and then just as I continue to share about widowhood and grief and just life after loss, Tanner and Shay is where it's going to be at.
Shay, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And we also want to thank you, our storytellers, for being here with us. We appreciate your time and would love to hear your takeaways from this week's show. Please share with someone who would love this discussion too, or you think it would help. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Talks with Dr. Shafer, where you enjoy podcasts, as well as Grief Witnessed, so you don't miss any of the inspiring episodes we have coming up. Until next time, stay safe and take care. I'll talk to you soon.